The Crusades, religious conviction versus political ambition. Introduction. The Crusades, a series of religiously motivated military campaigns spanning the late 11th to 15th centuries, were driven by a complex interplay of religious fervor and political ambition. Ostensibly launched to reclaim Jerusalem and the Holy Land for Christendom, the Crusades were also opportunities for the assertion of political power, territorial expansion, and personal gain. This duality of purpose, religious conviction versus political ambition, defined the Crusader movement and left a profound legacy in both European and Middle Eastern history. This essay examines the tension between these two forces, exploring how religious zeal and political objectives shaped the motivations, actions, and outcomes of the Crusades. By analyzing the roles of key actors, the institutional church and secular rulers, it becomes evident that the Crusades cannot be fully understood without recognizing the interplay between faith and power. Chapter 1: Religious Conviction as the Driving Force. 1.1 The religious context of the Crusades. The Crusades were deeply rooted in the medieval Christian worldview, which emphasized the centrality of the Church and the salvation of souls. The loss of Jerusalem to Muslim control in 638 CE and its recapture by the Seljuk Turks in 1071 intensified Christian concerns over access to holy sites. Pope Urban II's call for the First Crusade in 1095 framed the campaign as a sacred duty, promising plenary indulgences and portraying it as an act of penance. The rhetoric of the Crusades emphasized spiritual rewards, with participants believing that their actions would secure their place in heaven. Sermons, papal letters, and religious propaganda appealed to this sense of duty, mobilizing thousands of people from all walks of life. 1.2 Crusading as a form of piety. For many crusaders, participation was an act of profound faith. Taking up the cross symbolized a commitment to God's will and a willingness to endure hardship for a higher cause. Pilgrimage and religious devotion were central to the Crusader identity, with the journey to the Holy Land viewed as a path to spiritual renewal. Chapter 2: Political Ambitions and Power Dynamics. 2.1 The Role of Secular Leaders. While religious conviction was a significant motivator, the Crusades also served as a platform for political ambition. Secular rulers saw the Crusades as opportunities to expand their influence and consolidate power. Leaders such as Godfrey of Bouillon, Baldwin of Boulogne, and Richard the Lionheart combined their religious zeal with clear political objectives, including the establishment and governance of Crusader states. 2.2 The Church's political goals. The papacy played a dual role in the Crusades, acting as both a spiritual guide and a political entity. By calling for the Crusades, popes like Urban II sought to assert the authority of the Church over secular rulers and unify Christendom under papal leadership. The Crusades also provided a means of redirecting internal European conflicts outward, reducing the threat of civil wars and consolidating papal influence. 2.3 Territorial expansion and economic gain. The conquest of Jerusalem and the establishment of Crusader states were not merely acts of religious devotion but also strategic moves to control valuable territories. The Levant was a crossroads of trade routes, and controlling it offered economic advantages. Moreover, the Crusades provided opportunities for the redistribution of land and wealth, benefiting nobles and military leaders who participated in the campaigns. Chapter 3: The Interplay of Faith and Power. 3.1 The First Crusade. A religious vision with political results. The First Crusade, 1096 to 1099, exemplifies the tension between religious conviction and political ambition. While many participants were driven by faith, the outcomes included the establishment of feudal states in the Levant. Leaders like Bohemond of Taranto and Raymond of Toulouse balanced their spiritual motivations with the pursuit of political dominance. 3.2 The Fourth Crusade. A case study in political ambition. The Fourth Crusade, 1202 to 1204, starkly illustrates the shift from religious zeal to political opportunism. Originally intended to recapture Jerusalem, the campaign was diverted to Constantinople, where Crusaders sacked the city. This event, driven by the financial and political interests of Venice and the Crusader leaders, highlighted the growing dominance of political goals over religious objectives. 3.3 The Role of Non-Noble Participants. For ordinary Crusaders, religious conviction often outweighed political considerations. However, their efforts were frequently co-opted by leaders with more pragmatic ambitions. The popular enthusiasm for the Crusades underscores the depth of religious commitment, even as elite leaders pursued their own agendas. Chapter 4. Consequences of the dual motivations. 4.1 Religious outcomes. The Crusades reinforced the power of the Church, elevating its role as the moral and spiritual leader of Christendom. They also contributed to a heightened sense of Christian identity and the demonization of non-Christians, including Muslims and Jews. However, the failure to achieve lasting control over the Holy Land challenged the Church's authority, leading to disillusionment among some followers. 4.2 Political and economic transformations. The Crusades facilitated the rise of centralized monarchies and the expansion of European influence in the Mediterranean. They also spurred economic growth through increased trade and the development of financial systems to support the campaigns. 4.3 Cultural and intellectual exchange. Despite their violent nature, the Crusades also led to moments of cultural exchange. Contact with the Islamic world introduced Europeans to new technologies, medical knowledge, and philosophical ideas, enriching European culture and laying the groundwork for the Renaissance. Chapter 5. Legacy and interpretation. 5.1 The legacy of religious conviction. The Crusades remain a symbol of religious devotion and sacrifice for many. They also highlight the capacity of faith to inspire collective action, for better or worse. 5.2 The shadow of political ambition. The political ambitions that drove the Crusades have left a more ambiguous legacy. While they contributed to the expansion of European power, they also exposed the dangers of mixing religion with politics, resulting in deep-seated conflicts and rivalries. 5.3 Modern reflections. The Crusades continue to be debated in historical and religious contexts, with some viewing them as noble endeavors and others as early examples of imperialism. This duality reflects the enduring tension between religious ideals and political realities. Conclusion. Chapter 6 Motivations of key actors. 6.1 The papacy and the Church's role. The papacy played a central role in initiating and sustaining the Crusades. Popes like Urban II and Innocent III used the campaigns to achieve multiple goals. Religious goals: to reclaim Jerusalem and other holy sites from Muslim control, asserting the dominance of Christianity. Political ambitions: to unify Christendom under papal authority, reducing the influence of secular rulers, and resolving internal conflicts by redirecting aggression outward. Economic incentives: by promoting the Crusades, the Church increased its wealth through donations, taxes, and indulgence sales. 6.2 Monarchs and secular leaders. Secular rulers often balanced their participation in the Crusades between religious piety and political pragmatism. Expansion of influence: monarchs like Richard the Lionheart sought to enhance their reputation and extend their influence through military success in the Holy Land. Dynastic politics: participation often served domestic purposes, such as consolidating power or resolving disputes with rival nobles. Economic gain: leaders benefited from spoils of war, new trade opportunities, and control over strategic territories in the Mediterranean. 6.3 The role of the knights and military orders. Knights and military orders, such as the Templars and Hospitallers, embodied the intersection of religious and political motives. Religious zeal: these warriors dedicated their lives to defending Christian holy sites and pilgrims. Political power: military orders amassed significant wealth and influence, controlling key fortifications and playing crucial roles in Crusader states. Financial enterprise: organizations like the Templars became involved in banking, highlighting their dual role as spiritual protectors and economic actors. 6.4 The ordinary Crusaders. For peasants, artisans, and other ordinary participants, motivations were often more straightforward. Spiritual aspirations: many joined to fulfill vows, seek indulgences, or atone for sins. Economic relief: some were driven by the prospect of escaping poverty or securing land in the East. Social mobility: participation offered opportunities for adventure and upward mobility, even if these were often co-opted by the ambitions of the elite. Chapter 7 The impact on Muslim and Jewish communities. 7.1 Muslim responses and resistance. The Crusades spurred significant political and military changes in the Islamic world. Political unification. Leaders like Saladin and later the Mamluks unified fragmented Muslim factions to resist the Crusaders. Military innovation. The prolonged conflict led to advancements in military strategy and fortification. Cultural impact. The Crusades were framed in Islamic history as a defense of faith, strengthening the concept of jihad, struggle, against external threats.